Hi everyone, today we are going to be going through origins and insertions of a few of the intrinsic back muscles in the deep layer, and we are going to also go through the deepest layer. So to start, we're going to be going through the muscle semispinalis, and semispinalis has three different regions. We have a capitis region, a thoracis region, and then we also have a cervicis region right here. So first we are going to go through the semispinalis capitis. And here you can see it originating onto some of the transverse processes here of select thoracic vertebrae. And then for capitis, we can see the insertion up onto the skull. And then if we remove capitis, we can see cervicis a bit better. So here we go. So here's semispinalis cervicis. And again, we can see the origin on the transverse processes of the thoracic vertebrae. And up here, we can see it inserting onto spinous processes of superior vertebrae. And here you can see the origin is on the inferior vertebrae, and it comes up and inserts onto superior, some cervical vertebrae. And then we can see semispinalis thoracis, and we can see the origin again on the transverse processes of thoracic vertebrae coming up onto the spinous processes. Okay, so that is semispinalis. And now we are going to go through our multifidus muscle. And we can see this muscle is running all the way from our sacrum here up to C2 vertebrae. So it's not quite reaching the skull, but it will be attaching onto C2. So for the origin, we can see that it will be attaching to our sacrum, and then certain levels will be attaching to transverse processes here for our origin. And also back down here, it will be attaching to our PSIS on our ilium. And then for the insertion, it's going to be inserting onto spinous processes of superior vertebrae. And that will go all the way up to C2. For our insertion. And then if we remove the multifidus muscle, we can see a couple different muscles here. So if we let's start with interspinalis. So our interspinalis muscle is only going to be attaching in our cervical region and our lumbar region. So those are the two regions where we have interspinalis. So if I pull this up, we can see that for the origin, interspinalis will be attaching to the spinous process, and then the insertion will also be to the next spinous process. So here we can see an origin right here, and then the insertion. So it's going to be intersegmented between each specific segments of the muscle. And then this would also be true for our lumbar region, and I will just show you that real quick. See, it's the same thing. So we have our origin and insertion, both on the spinous process. And then for our next muscle, we have our rotatories muscle. And for our rotatories, they will be attaching to the transverse process of our thoracic vertebrae. And then the insertion will be on the lamina. Okay, so some of them are going to run longer. Here we are seeing the longer muscle of rotatories. And we can also see this one here that will only be running from this transverse process to the next lamina, and some of them will cross over a thoracic vertebrae and go on to the lamina superior to this one. So, but all you guys have to know is that it will be originating on our transverse process and inserting onto lamina, and our rotatories will only be in the thoracic region. And our next muscle is intertransversari. So this muscle will be originating on the transverse process, and it will also be inserting on the transverse process, and this is happening at all levels. Okay, so we have our origin and then our insertion. And then our next muscle is going to be quadratus lumborum. And here we can see our origin here will be on the posterior iliac crest. You can see it there. Okay. And then insertions, it will be attaching to some of our transverse processes of the lumbar vertebrae here, and then it's also going to be attaching to our 12th rib for the insertion right here. And hopefully that was helpful.